All righty, everybody. This is my third interview where I get to interview somebody locally. As most of you know, I tend to interview people from around the world. And I was super impressed and excited when I met Kate Anderson, who happens to be an educator and a music director for a symphony, a youth symphony, and then also within my daughter's school. So, Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for asking me, Carrie. I'm really excited to talk.
Yeah. So I was immediately attracted to your energy, right? I connected with you when I think it was like a parent teacher conference maybe first, and I'm like,
Yep.
oh, I love it, like authentic. You're super unique and quirky, which I am too. Like, I like that because that tells me people are showing up as themselves rather than kind of showing up as who they think they need to be for parents or students. So I was really immediately attracted to that. But then what most impressed me was the effect you had on Billy, because I just saw her blossom from somebody who, wasn't so comfortable being, seen, really heard, to somebody who's like, okay, I kind of got this. So I'm curious. First off, why music and how'd you get involved in music?
Well, music is my muse. It is something that speaks to me and it's part of me. So when I was in the second grade, I was 8 years old, and somebody brought in a violin to like a music class. And the second that bow hit the string, I was like, oh, I need to touch that instrument and try it. So, as an 8 year old, you get recorder and that's about it. So I got my hands on it and I pulled that bow and it was like spellbind. And I said, I definitely want to do that for the rest of my life. And it was kind of just pulled me right in. And as a young child, I had no idea what that would lead to. But, I had dreams of touring with, Electric Light Orchestra or, Trans Siberian Orchestra and things like
Ooh,
that.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and then I ended up in education, which is even better, I think, because I get to share my passion and my joy for what music provides me as an outlet and expression for my students too. So it's been a wonderful journey, and it's ever changing, and that's something that I love about music too, is that no day is the same as the one before, and just like no song is the same as someone else's. So
That's
that's
so
kind of how
beautiful. I
music
love that.
happened.
So I'm curious. So 8 years old, you kind of knew your soul's purpose, which is interesting because I think children do know, and we kind of coax it out of them, right? Because we condition our kids to perform in school, to operate alongside a set of rules and conditions, which, I'm the antithesis of, and my community totally knows that. So, um, were you supported by your family in doing music right off the bat?
So no, it was definitely and has been an uphill battle to get here. There's many people that told me I could never teach music. Um, and that was hard to
Yeah.
handle because as a small child, like I said, I just knew that that was something that I should do and wanted to share with the world. And just like anybody with a passion, there's always someone, a naysayer, that will tell you no, and it's up to you and how much you really, want to put into that passion, and how important it is to you, that you keep fighting the good fight. And I managed to end up here. In a million years, I would have never thought that this is my like sitting on an interview with you talking about my journey. And I would have, if somebody told me that like even 10 years ago, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
But I realized how powerful this music community is, and the energy community and sound healing and yoga and mindfulness and all of this stuff that really has come into my life in the past 10 years. It's just quite, I'm just over abundant blessed, with having these experiences and being able to share them with the kids, because that is something I wish an educator would have done for me,
Yeah.
because this is where the power is, and how you can persevere through some of those people that tell you you can't do something. So
Yeah.
That's why I'm giving it back a little bit. I'm trying it
I
too.
love it. So, you're not trying, you're doing. I mean, like I said, I fortunately for me, I get to see, what your work does firsthand for some of these students who really wouldn't otherwise have an outlet that really help them, one, express their emotions, and then two, believe in themselves. And because that's a huge thing. So I think that ties into, there were naysayers, and at 8 years old, like, to just have resilience, to be tenacious, to stick to it. you know where did that come from, or was it just, I'm going to do this, and no matter what, it's like a non-negotiable?
It really was even at that young age. So I'm the youngest of 3, and both my older siblings took an instrument up and did not like it after a few years. So here I come along, do do do, and I want to play violin, which was something that they hadn't done. It was the first time it was being offered in the school district, and I was like, I need to do this. This is something I'm just destined to do. And it was like $500 to start the whole package, and that was like a big chunk of change. And so I bravely brought the paper home, and I like said, "Mom, please, please." And like she was like, absolutely not. Go pick up the clarinet or the trombone. We have one of those. You're not doing a new instrument, blah, blah, blah. And so for like, I don't know, 3 days, I cried and begged and pleaded, like just wouldn't stop being tenacious and just saying, please, please, please. And I said, I promise, I swear I'll never, ever, ever quit. And it's almost 40 years later that I still play,
Do you?
even
I
through the
love
pain.
that.
Yeah.
A
So
funny story, I loved the violin as a young kid, and my parents got me one, and my brother broke it over something, and that was the end of my violin days. But I can pick up a violin from any orchestra music or any music, like, I just have that innate ability.
I
So
love it.
that's amazing. And so, okay, so you pick up violin, it's your jam. Obviously, you take, music throughout high school, I imagine, and then you go to college, and you shared that you thought you were gonna be traveling and all that. How
Yeah.
did you end up landing in the field that you do now, is as an educator?
So it really was my dad who said you got to have a plan B. It's great to want to be a professional musician, but there's a term called starving artist for a reason, and it's always good to have a plan B, especially with an instrument in a demand such as violin, which is very popular. And
Really?
so yeah, it's like it's one of because you need so many in an orchestra, but orchestras unfortunately are on the dying breed, which I'm trying to fight, which is why I do community orchestra with youth and trying to get our string program up and running in Thompson and all of that because I think creating a vibration with a bow is something that is only unique to those string instruments and it's so healing and amazing. And I had no idea when I first heard that that's what was happening. I just
Yeah.
loved the sound. But it
Yep.
really is, if you think about the science, it's just like playing a singing bowl. That vibration is connected and it's right at your heart space. And it's just like so amazing. So yeah, my dad's like, yeah, you can't just go and be a performer. You need to think about something. How about education? And I'm like, okay. And I had already been starting to do lessons and things like that. But I pretty much just said, okay, I'll do that. So off to UConn I went and round the bend, finished out there and decided I don't know if I wanted to do public education. So I ended up in parochial schools for over 10 years, and that was a wonderful mission of mine. I felt like God really needed me in his school system to kind of share the passion and love of music. And
Yeah.
I kind of felt a little like closed to the public education sector. So this is a wonderful door to try. And off I went doing that for a wonderful, I think it was 10 to 12 years, very just different schools through Eastern Connecticut and ended up in Putnam and at St. Mary's over here before they closed. And that was a little devastating for our family because I did move my whole family here for that school that was open for over 150 years. And
Wow.
then yeah, it was kind of the epidemic about 8, 10 years ago when all the Catholic churches were shutting their schools down. And that's
Yep.
just the nature of the economy and the faith and all of that happening. So that was different. And when the school shut down, I told my husband because my children were very young. I told my husband, "Hey, I'm gonna go hike the Appalachian Trail." I had just gotten into hiking and doing mountains, and it was really like just a nice release. And I felt kind of like hurt, by the whole educational
Yeah.
system and shutting schools down and all of that. And so I literally was off to go. And I got a call for Thompson. Said, "Hey, we don't have a music teacher." I'm like, "Okay." I don't do high school because I was doing pre-K through 8. And they're like, no, come on up and just sub for a while. The teacher didn't show up for one day or something. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and sub. And I have been there ever since. And that was 13 years ago. So it's been a journey and an eye-opening educational experience for everybody. And like I love what I do. And um it's gone full circle on so many different levels. And being able to explore my mindfulness, which is what I did my master's in. I did multiple intelligence theory, and then that led me to my thesis of mindfulness in music.
Yep.
And starting with a singing bowl that I found in a fair, and I just heard those vibrations, and I was like, "What is this thing?" And it felt very much like the violin, and I just had to find the science behind that because there's something to that, and the resonation that it creates for people. So that's where that journey went. And I remember writing in my thesis, one of my last lines is, "Oh, I really hope one day I can bring this great idea of mindfulness and music to our small little town community in Thompson, but I know that won't ever happen because it's a small, tiny community, and this is a way out there kind of theory. Literally 2 years later, COVID happened, and everybody wants
Yep.
SEL and social emotional learning, and they're like, please help us. And I'm like, what? Okay, I can totally do that. And
Yeah.
there I am, doing PD with people and trying to get them to understand the importance of the social emotional aspect in yoga and breath work and meditation and the singing bowls and the mindful moments. And yeah, so it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to unpack there. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
okay,
I
first,
ramble.
no, no, never be on. No, I would have cut you off. Like, I love that, but seriously. So, I think one thing I want to highlight is, you talk about mindfulness, you talk about really taking care of yourself, right? So you were in hiking and stuff. And then, the reason I highlight that to the community is you are with a partner who recognizes your need for, space to take care of yourself so that you can really nurture your own soul. And then in doing so, you're able to show up in a relationship, but also obviously for the community. So I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of the practices that you are, immersed in help that lens. And so I just want to highlight what an amazing husband you have and how
Really.
powerful you are to be able to um take care of yourself in a meaningful way, particularly when you look at, school systems. I look at a lot of burnt out teachers,
Yeah.
a lot of teachers who don't know how to really take care of themselves. And as a result, it unintentionally directly impacts not only the classroom environment, but the kids that are being taught by these teachers. So,
So true. Yes,
yeah.
that is a big epidemic going on till this day. Since the COVID, all the stresses but that education was surrounded in. So yeah, trying to make that a forefront is a good thing.
Yes, yeah, and I talk to people all over who are really focused on, my thing is what are we doing for the teachers to make sure that they have the support systems in place so they can feel empowered to take care of themselves, which then obviously we know trickles into our children, right? So
Yep. Yep.
so you touched upon, so you got your masters in like vibration and all of that. How did you come across your own healing journey? Because I imagine you didn't just one day say, "Oh, I'm going to study yoga and I'm going to become mindful and it's going to be this
No,
great thing."
fun story, and I tell this to my students all the time because I think it's poignant. So at UConn, you have, to take all these classes. There was only one class I ever actually dropped out of for no credit because I hated it. And I took many credits. I even took a class with Wally Lamb, the famous writer.
Yep.
She's come undone. And he said, I still remember sitting in his class and I didn't even know who he was. I just wanted to take a short story creative writing class because I needed to get away from the music because it's very intense when you're going away for school for music. So I walked into his class and we had to sign this like waiver saying, there might be camera people in here for TV. And I'm like, why? And there's like, don't you know who this is? I'm like, no, he's like a writer, right? And they're like, you need to know. And I'm like, he was in the Oprah Winfrey Book Club and all that. So
Oh yeah, I've read
um,
his book
yeah, he's
very well.
amazing.
Yeah.
He signed my book at the end of the semester. He's like, "You're my only music education major ever that come through these doors because they're too busy to do other classes." I said, "Well, I just needed an outlet." So and I use his stuff till this day. He's pretty awesome. But anyways, the only class I dropped out of was a yoga class. That's right, everybody. I literally was like, yoga, I'm gonna do this. And I had my friend, and we sat in this big armory place, and it was like 100 people. And then they started to do this crazy breath of fire breath work. And I'm like, what's happening? And I just could not, it was not my jam at that time. And
Yeah.
to go, if I saw myself back then and say, don't drop this class, you're gonna need it later. Um, I would have laughed because it just didn't resonate at that time. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of it's still a long journey of healing
Yeah.
to find my own voice in such a loud world, competitive world, to build ourselves up. And to this day, you know, I still hear that inner child that's very loud, and tenacious, constantly coming through,
Yep.
and just trying to give that space is good, and to let it heal, and then to remember this is the now, and that's where that
Yeah.
mindfulness comes in. And um so like some things, you know, stress out people all the time. And so I feel the feeling and show the feeling, and then show the way to come down of it. And it happens like instantaneous. So like students will see me like, maybe a kid does something inappropriately, and my face, I'm a conductor, so I do everything through my face. I have to show expression. And so like if a kid tells me to F off or something in the lunchroom for asking him to take his hood off, you know, I'll be like, "Ugh," right? Like devastated. And then I'll go, okay, this is just this child is choosing these words to express themselves inappropriately. And then I gain control myself, and immediately breathe. And then the kid looks at me, and I said, did you see that process? That's me not getting angry with you, but instead allowing you to have your space, just like I need my space. I'm a human too. So like
Yeah.
that's the conversations that I have with students. And not that they ever tell me to F off or any of that, but you know, just using it as an
Yeah.
example of what how to like pull yourself in and be in the mind, in the minute. With music, you're always under pressure when you're trying to perform, because music, you have to play the notes as close to accurate as possible, or somebody's going to recognize you might have missed a note or a blue note or whatnot. And that's a lot of pressure for children, for students, for adults to do.
Yeah.
So I think mindfulness is a huge part. You hear it as stage fright, it presents like that, you know, and or dropping a line if you're an actor. So trying to be just in the moment and what you're doing, and appreciating that gift of creating that art, whether it be, you know, visual, audio, acting. That's what I try to promote. So that's the
Yeah.
healing part of my job.
Well, something that you said that I love. Well, one, we talk about your journey in yoga, and you said, well, it wasn't for me at that time, but I immediately think about planting seeds. And this is what I'm constantly telling my children when they're engaged with friends, or when I'm talking to clients, when they're talking to having tough conversations, is we're planting seeds. And what we, are immersed in right now may not resonate, but it doesn't mean that it's not germinating in our subconscious, and ultimately will come, it will manifest itself the way it needs to. And I think it speaks to what you're doing, in being that expressive person, but then being able to bring it in. I'm very much the same way, particularly with my children, right? Because having teenage daughters, you're passionate. You want to make sure it's good. And then, you can be really expressive, but then to be able to recognize and take a moment and pause and then choose something differently is so powerful. And I think that's going to have a much more profound effect than on those kids in the future. Because whereas a lot of kids are still used to environments where people are highly reactive simply because they don't know any other way, seeing small groups of people show up and not respond right away and really be thoughtful in how they communicate is really important. So I love that so much. So now you said, I know that, so you've been with Thompson for what, 10 years now?
13. This is my 13, lucky
Years.
13. My cat is
Wow. And
jumping.
so you said, you mentioned you're trying to build an orchestra or a string ensemble. I guess talk to me about that, because I wouldn't have known that orchestras are kind of on the decline. And
Yeah,
um
it's kind of
how
sad actually.
what's that?
I said it's kind of sad actually how the orchestral music is on the decline, just because a lot of programs, you don't see schools offering the string programs anymore.
Yeah.
So Eastern Connecticut is one of the main areas along 395. And on that 395 corridor, there's only, I think, two or three schools systems that offer strings. So
Wow.
I started the string program in Griswold, and it still remains there, which is great. But NFA has a great thriving string program, orchestra program. And then I believe, well, Groton has a huge program, which is awesome. And that's where I do Eastern Connecticut Youth Symphony Orchestra out of, and a
Yep.
string ensemble that's been in place for several years, over 30. I actually was part of that community ensemble when I was in high school. So to conduct that has been a wonderful privilege and an honor. But even the numbers on that have been drastically going down. And it's just the cost. And I think how often do you hear a new orchestra come out with a new album? Like it's not
Yeah.
one of those kind of main, like, let's hit a quick TikTok video and you hear, Bach's fifth, concerto, but it's just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
However, the music and the amazing benefits that it provides for our brains and for our souls is just it's priceless. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, if you would, when it comes to any kind of music, but making music and creating music. I just have a small passion for strings because of the way that it makes me feel. And so this year I was able to bring strings finally to Thompson, and we have a string ensemble class, which is great. And I have each semester I've had 8 kids in there because of the instruments that we have. I only have so many because
Yep.
it is a little cost of thing, but now with we have two new music teachers in Thompson, our elementary school and our middle school teachers, and they're actually introducing strings next year, woohoo, at the elementary level, just like I did at Grizzled long ago. So we're going to try and like bookend the strings and also start instruments down at the elementary and fourth grade so that we're getting to the brain sooner and helps to, build up that muscle that is so hard to exercise. The whole brain, I mean, reading and math and all that is wonderful, but music is a full brain activity. And it's like putting in little pennies for your piggy bank when you're later on in life and you need those extra neuro pathways to go around some healing, so that's what I'm promoting, and I'm hoping that that goes on. So yeah,
Yeah. I
no
love
tip
that.
there.
Yeah. So I, again, I love what you do. I mean, really, it excites me because I think it's so, especially nowadays when you see both adults and children are really struggling to cope with just the information overload. We're constantly being infused, and being able to really not only take up a string or any instrument, but also the discipline that is required, the resilience that you learn through, you know, failing forward, because to your point, you're not always going to hit that right note. You are going to show up and make a mistake, and being able to move through that and recognize that that doesn't define who you are. And I think too often right now, people see failure as a weakness or as making them less than, when really I think it's a beautiful gift to learn that you're always going to fail forward. It's really powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
for
wanna
sure.
I wanna mention before we end this, so you have a music therapy program where you support people through music therapy. I know that you have a GoFundMe that we're definitely going to put up for the page for anybody who wants to support. But can you talk to me about how that started and what that looks like and what your hope is with that?
Sure. So the music therapy class is a new offering again at Thompson that I was able to bring in after COVID when they're looking for more pathways for music careers. So this is definitely a career for music or anybody who likes to do music and therapy. And I think it is one of the up and coming medical fields that I hope people embrace because it's all non-invasive and there's so much science behind it that proves so many benefits that music can really offer a diverse population of patients, from Alzheimer's patients to newborn premature babies or even babies in utero. So like, I mean, the science is overwhelming, and it's just now we have the technology to be able to prove all of the benefits.
Yeah.
They've had it's been around, I think, since 1950-ish. And after World War II, that's when music therapy really started to come into like, hey, this kind of works for people that have PTSD and shell shock. So once that became a thing, it's just been, has it takes time, momentum And for me to be able to teach a little bit about the history of it and some of the techniques that the musical therapist use has been a lot of fun and has helped me bring in my mindfulness and my yoga and everything into one culminating class. And I think the kids are enjoying it and learning so much, from vibrations to sound healing to art therapy to music therapy. I mean, just improvisation. It's been a lot of fun. We just actually had a NIAS study come in, and we all in music therapy made mindful jars so that they had the team had a moment that they could take a minute and relax during the stressful time of grading and evaluating school systems. And then they all wrote a little mindful minute, and it was a guided meditation. So I mean, I think that's a huge part of the human experience, and you know, just taking that minute and encompassing it and enjoying where you're at.
Yeah.
That's what that's about.
I love that. And so do you plan to like grow it, or because I mean I think that that is so necessary for all schools, because really again, I mean not just for kids but teachers as well, when we're not taught how to take care of ourselves, right? And we hear all of this stuff about self-care, but
Self-care.
what
Yep.
is self-care? Really being able to learn yourself in a meaningful way, and music therapy, being able to meditate, to pause, to just breathe, to do yoga really empowers people to learn themselves and then make more meaningful, impactful decisions for themselves and the world. So, um,
Sure.
is is it your hope to grow it in the school, in the district, or do you?
Well, I definitely want to continue the program in school and to help inspire students to go on to the college level and become music therapist certified, which would be awesome. I myself am looking to expand my sound healing business. So I am starting to venture into a private sector and offering sound healing at different places, hopefully this summer. Just starting that, that's a brand new adventure. And I'm really excited about that because it has helped me immensely. And between that and my yoga, I would like to kind of embody the whole nature yoga and sound healing into one benefit for anybody that wants to experience that. So that's something that I'm working toward.
I love that. I mean, bells keep flying. I'm like, Teague, man, Teague needs your sound healing. But anyway, all right. So my last question: what's one thing that you know now that you didn't even know a year ago that you think could really benefit or positively impact the community who's watching this interview?
Do not live in fear. That's still something that I fight every day because the world tells you no, and instead you should tell yourself yes, because
Yes.
risk taking is everything. And every time I take a risk, it's just so awesome and it's scary and it makes you do this, but that's how you know you're really living. So take that risk, and yeah, the world will tell you no, but you can say yes.
Yes, I love that so much. It's interesting. I'm a big visual person. I teach my clients visuals, and without even knowing, and this goes to planting seeds, a very long time ago, I saw a quote, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I tattooed it to my arm. And I can't help but wonder if that is why I am who I am today, because it was a constant reminder that you're gonna be afraid, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. So
Right.
thank you so much, Kate, for your time, for your insight, for most importantly, how you're showing up and contributing positively to the students, to the community, and really to the world. I am in deep gratitude. For anybody who wants to learn more about Kate, I will have her information. If you're interested in yoga and sound healing, I'll make sure that I get that information as she continues to expand what she offers so that you guys can reach out and be supported by this amazing person.
Thank you, dear. This is awesome. I
It
appreciate
was so
having
good.
you here.
I love it. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you next week for another edition of What's Your Story?